everybody, I'm Katie, and as everybody who knows me knows, I'm kind of obsessed with dogs. Particularly for me, it's Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. Paint pictures of them and crazy stuff like that. Make them little hats. So I wanted to come on here and talk about the big, angry debate that is going on amongst dog lovers about how we fix the problems of dog abandonment in our society. And to do that, I kind of needed to look at some statistics to figure out like what's really going on and what has happened in the past and how far have we come, because this isn't like a brand new thing that people are trying to fix. We've been working on this for decades as a society to try to reduce the number of dogs that end up in shelters, and particularly dogs that end up in shelters and then are euthanized. So I looked at a bunch of statistics from the ASPCA and different organizations, and kind of what I found out is that we've actually come a really long way since the 1960s. So back in the 1960s, there were 10 to 20 times as many dogs being euthanized in the United States than there are today. In 1973, the number of animals euthanized in the United States was 13.5 million, which is a lot, and that's cats and dogs. In 1985, that number was down to 7.6 to 10 million, and today that number is about 1 million. Now, out of that million animals that's euthanized every year in the United States, 670,000 are dogs. That's horrible. Is it better than it used to be? Yes. Is it something we should improve on as a society? I think everybody would agree that's something that we should improve on. So the arguments that I'm hearing are, there's a group of people who are really blaming that there are so many mixed breed dogs, and they're like, if we buckle down and we just try to help support ethical purebred dog breeders and we educate people to try to get the right dog for their lifestyle to set them up for success, that is how we're going to fix this problem. And then there is the other side of the argument that says no single dog in the world should be bred, period, end of story, until all the shelters are empty. Yeah, those are the two sides of the argument. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of nuance to different people's opinions. Not everybody is that fanatical on one side or the other, and I think most of us just want to figure out, like, what do we do? Like, how do we get to a better place for dogs in our society? So to put those numbers in perspective, 670,000 dogs are euthanized in the United States each year. 3.3 million dogs will go into dog shelters this year. That's the estimate. That's what they're expecting. Maybe a little more, you never know. But there's 78 million pet dogs in the United States, and that was a few years ago. They recently updated that, and they think that now there's more like 108 million pet dogs. So there's 108 million pet dogs in the United States. 3.3 million of those are going to end up in shelters. So where are these dogs coming from? A lot of dogs that come out of shelters go right back into shelters. 20% are returned to the shelter they came from in the first 6 months. So people that are adopting them are not keeping them. 20%. But 60% of adopted pets, and that's dogs and cats, 60% of the animals that somebody takes out of the shelter, 6 months later, they're not with that same person. So if something happened and the person that adopted the animal didn't keep it, that's not a very great success rate. 40% after 6 months is just not that great. So what's going on here? Obviously, I think we need a lot more education about what dogs are and what they need and what it takes to be a responsible dog owner. I think that the argument for supporting good ethical breeders has more merit than saying don't breed at all, period. And there's reasons for that. A good reputable breeder is doing health testing. They're paying attention to temperament. They're paying attention to the stability of their lines. Are they getting consistent adult size? Are they getting consistent characteristics? Are they getting consistently healthy dogs? And are they consistently seeing that the dogs they're placing are staying in those homes because they have stable temperaments and they chose good homes and made sure those folks are educated? The other thing that a lot of, I would say every reputable breeder is doing that's truly reputable is they have a contract that their puppy parent signs. And part of a good breeder contract is ensuring a forever home. So if you as a puppy buyer buy a dog from somebody like me, you're going to sign a contract that says, if you can't keep that dog, you need to talk to me. And we're going to figure it out, whether you're giving me first chance to buy that dog back or you're just approving where you want the dog to go to make sure that I'm okay with that, because it's not going to be approved to go to a shelter or a rescue. I'll take it back. You don't need to take it someplace like that if something happened. It's not going to happen. Most reputable breeders are not going to let you take their puppy that they put all that time and effort in to a place like that. It's not going to happen. So when we look at the fact that 25% of the dogs in shelters are purebred, that means that 3 times as many are mixed breeds. So what's the difference? There are good mixed breed dog breeders. There are. There's not that many, but there are some that have contracts that do health testing that for both parent breeds that are working to create their own little mixed line of healthy, happy dogs. And I think that's great. I love Cavalier King Charles Spaniels how they are. There's a lot of people that want a Cavalier mixed with something else. I'm not going to say that you're never allowed to do that, but if you're going to get a dog like that, you really need to make sure that whoever's breeding it is doing health testing for both parents. And you have to realize that when you do mix breeds, you're losing a huge amount of consistency. So what are the reasons that dogs end up in the shelter in the first place? Housing issues. People move. That's a really big one. Dogs have behavior problems. Basically a lack of training or an inconsistent temperament. Another big one is somebody gets a dog and then they realize when it's grown up, it's way bigger than they thought it was going to be. You're not going to run into that problem with a purebred dog as much as you are a mixed breed, because a purebred dog, there's pretty consistent sizing for what that dog's going to look like. And if somebody tells you, oh yeah, this is a purebred Labrador, but it's going to be 10 pounds when it's grown up, you should know that that person's not being honest with you about something. There's so much research on these different breeds. It really empowers people to learn about what to expect and make an informed decision. That's one of the nice things about dog breeds. The other thing we should realize when we're talking about, is it better to get purebred dogs or mixed breed dogs? Some people say, mixed breeds are way healthier. And to a degree, that's true, but not the first generation. And mixed breed dogs are actually more likely to carry recessive mutations that can cause health problems, but they're less likely to be affected by those. So a purebred dog's more likely to have, 2 bad copies of the gene, because there's so much less diversity amongst dogs of that breed than dogs in general. Because if you look at people, most people were pretty darn similar to each other. But you can look at a Great Dane and a Chihuahua and see that dogs have way more genetic diversity than humans do. Why do we have different breeds of dogs in the first place? Well, people have been breeding different breeds of dogs, or breeding dogs to get different traits, to become different breeds, as we call them, to do different jobs. We have search and rescue dogs. We have police dogs. We have hunting dogs. We have herding dogs. We have dogs that were bred to kill rats and other pests on people's farms to help protect their livestock from disease. There are so many different jobs that dogs have been bred to do in our society. And that's why we have all these different kinds of dog breeds, because people have different needs they need their dog to fill. I mean, Huskies have a great use as a sled dog. You need a dog out in front of you that trusts its own judgment above yours. So when you tell it, go into a big hole in the ice, it says, no thanks, we're going to go this way. But you take that Husky and you want to live in an apartment with it, you have a dog that was bred to trust its own judgment over yours, and now you want it to live by these very strict rules in a little apartment and not destroy anything. You're probably going to end up with a problem. A lot of the dogs, when I look through my local shelter lists of what dogs are in there, they're mostly bigger, medium to large sized dogs that are working breeds. They have working breed energy, working breed drive. They need a job. And most families aren't super duper great at giving their dog a job that suits what it needs. Now, mind you, there's 108 million pet dogs, so I shouldn't say that most families aren't, because obviously 3.3 million go in the shelters out of 78 to 108 million in people's homes. Most of us are doing a pretty good job at doing great with our dogs and giving them jobs. But there are people who are getting dogs and they think that, oh, it's going to be just like on TV, and this dog, I'm going to teach it and it's going to just do whatever I want all the time, and it's not going to tear anything up, and it's going to be super easy to train, and if I have time to walk it, great, but if I don't, it's going to be okay. No. Dogs are a ton of work. Even a little Chihuahua is going to be work. You're still going to have to work to train that little bitty dog. But when you look at a great big dog that's not trained, and you compare it to a little tiny dog that's not trained, who's going to do more damage? And who's going to be more likely to go to the shelter? It's a lot harder to contain, a German Shepherd or a Husky, as many people know are escape artists, that wants out to go entertain itself than a little Chihuahua or a Yorkie or whatever small breed of dog. Like, there's a different level of challenge here to containment and training that you're going to face. So, helping educate people about what does it really take to be a responsible dog owner, and part of that is selecting the right kind of dog. And this is where that debate comes into play, because a lot of people say, go rescue. Go to the shelter and get a dog and help solve this problem. Give those 3.3 million dogs homes. And in my perfect world, all of those dogs would have homes and we wouldn't need rescues, and I wouldn't need to make this video in the first place. But realistically, not everybody is going to be able to go to the shelter and take a chance on one of those dogs being the right fit for their home. There's a reason that 60% of the people that go and get an animal from the shelter don't have it 6 months later. Because the dog you meet at the shelter isn't going to be the dog that you have 2 weeks later once it's comfortable in your house and has shown its personality. You can try to go through a rescue that fosters, where you have people who have this dog in a normal home that are giving you information about how this dog is behaving, what are its challenges, what are its strengths, that are working on training before it gets sent home. But realistically, we don't have the resources as a country. There's not enough people signing up to do that. I hope that more people can do that work. I've fostered a dog before, and I was a total foster failure, and I kept her, and she passed when she was almost 17 years old. Fostering can be really hard, because a lot of times you're ending up with a dog that has health issues and behavioral issues, and it's kind of a gamble. I mean, is this dog going to end up having any aggressive tendencies, any really bad separation anxiety, any really destructive behaviors? Because once a dog gets bad behaviors, it's really hard to get rid of, which is why a lot of people want a puppy. They want a young baby puppy that they can bring into their home and teach it the rules, from when it's little so that they don't have a dog that already learned a whole bunch of bad behavior to try to unteach, because unteaching something is a lot harder than teaching the right behavior in the first place. You're never, I mean, you can say all day long, nobody should breed dogs until the shelters are empty. Well, look how far we've come since the 60s. I mean, there's a lot less dogs being euthanized, and you know what we didn't do to have that happen? We didn't stop ethical, reputable breeders from breeding dogs and educating people about how to take care of them. We didn't stop them from that. We improved anyways. So saying the only way to solve this is to make sure nobody ever breeds a dog is kind of ridiculous. I mean, I don't think any of us want dogs to go extinct. And I certainly wouldn't want to stand by and watch every single ethical Cavalier breeder that does health testing stop breeding and let all of those bloodlines of healthy dogs die. Because you know who's not going to listen and who's not going to stop? The people that are doing it for money, who aren't health testing, who don't really give a rip about the welfare of dogs. They are doing this to make money. And those are the people on the breeder side of things that do need to be stopped. But they're not going to stop themselves. And unfortunately, going and trying to stop all breeders, because it would include them, it doesn't actually work. How are you going to do that? It's just, I can't even fathom how it makes sense to someone, I guess. I think what we need to do is we need to educate people. When you go and you rescue a puppy from a puppy mill because you just could not bear to leave it in those horrible conditions, you're part of the problem. If somebody breeds a litter of huskies in freaking Florida and nobody buys them, and now somebody has 15 huskies in Florida and they're all trying to break out of their house and eating their laundry room and doing whatever, that person's going to go, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't be trying to breed huskies in Florida. If they can't sell them, they probably won't do it again. But if they have enough people to go, oh my gosh, these cute little fluffy puppies, and oh, I really need to save them, and da-da-da-da-da, and then they get them, well, guess what? A lot of those dogs are going to end up in shelters, because even though you have the best of intentions to rescue the sweet little puppy, down the road, when it becomes more than you can handle because you didn't do your research, you didn't understand the breed, you didn't understand what you were getting yourselves into, that dog's going to enter the shelter. But guess what? That puppy mill backyard breeder person, they sold all those puppies, so they got their money. Why aren't they going to breed that dog again? I mean, let's realize supply and demand's a real thing in the dog world. Personally, I breed Cavalier King Charles Spaniels because they were bred to be companion lap dogs. They don't have super high energy. They are happy to sleep on the couch 90% of the time. They fit with most people's lifestyles. I know for a fact that I will have more than enough people who want desperately exactly my puppies so that I can choose the absolute best homes, and I don't have to settle for somebody that doesn't know the breed, or I don't have to settle for somebody that works all the time, or somebody who's not dedicated to training. I can make sure that I fully vet everybody who is going to become part of my family by getting one of my puppies, they're going to be somebody trustworthy. Not every dog breeder is doing that, and that is something that we need to, as a society, hold dog breeders accountable for, is what's your contract? Are you just putting puppies out there, and if the people can't handle them, like, they're just on their own, take it to the shelter? Because that's probably not a best practice. That's not a breeder you should be trying to support. You should find somebody that's a little bit stricter. Just saying. Those are the people that you want breeding your dogs. Going and getting a dog at the shelter is awesome if you can do that. But a lot of families can't, because they either do not have the time, money, and resources to do it, or they have other considerations like small children. Do you want to bring in an adult dog into your home that may or may not have behavioral problems? I don't know. Do you? A lot of people aren't going to. So saying absolutely no dog breeding is just not functional. It's just not feasible. It isn't what has helped get the improvement that we have already seen in our society since the 1960s, and it's not going to be what gets us to no dogs in shelters. What is going to get us to no dogs in shelters is educating people and holding the breeders that you do buy a puppy from responsible to the highest standards. Do not go to a rescue and take your chance on one of those dogs and try to save it, or go and buy a puppy from somebody that's doing the hard work. They are not making a bunch of money. Trust me. If you're doing it right, you're probably not making hardly any money at all, because it's very, very expensive to do this right. You're not lining some crazy rich person's pocket. If you do your research and you look and you find somebody and you ask them, where's the OFA's certifications? Show me the pedigrees. Show me the genetic lab reports. Ask for it. Make sure people aren't just lying to you and saying they do this stuff so they can charge you more money. Like, ask, check, make sure. Make sure that you're signing a legally binding contract that means you're going to have to bring your dog back. Because even if you're not worried about you and you know you're not going to let go of that dog, you're going to keep it for its life, who else is that person selling a dog to? And what kind of circumstances are those dogs going to end up in? What's happening to your dog's litter mates? I love my puppy people to get to know each other and come to little doggy family reunions and friend each other on Facebook and follow the development of each other's dogs. I think it's super cool. I wish more breeders did that, because it gives you that accountability of, what is happening to the rest of these dogs. I know what happened to the dog I got, but what happened to the rest of them? Did I support an ethical breeder? Can I honestly, wholeheartedly recommend somebody go back to that person I got my puppy from and say, yes, that's a good place to get a puppy? Do your research. Try to be prepared. If you know people who are going to get dogs and you don't think they're prepared, tell them. Ask them questions.